Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast for a Wednesday show. We talked yesterday about the salary cap around the league. We want to get into a little more specificity into the Avalanche in that conversation today, so we'll get into that. But some other avenues to cover as well, starting with Edmonton winning last night, pushing that series to 3-1. It's starting to look a whole lot like it is going to be the Florida-Edmonton rematch in the Cup Finals. Obviously, they both still need to win one more game to get it done. Am I just being a stubborn stickler for hating this Dallas-Edmonton series? Not because of the teams in them necessarily, but there has not been a 5-on-5 goal in that series for 70 minutes of hockey. And it's not even for lack of trying. They both generated 2 expected goals for at 5-on-5 last game, just none of them went in the net. But yeah, that series has been so predicated on special teams. It drives me a little bit crazy.
I don't care.
Okay. Fair enough.
I love it. That's why I was giving AJ the floor. But Azuri, thank you, buddy. Thank you. Glad to be back. Just a little bit of sun for a couple days with some family. But I watched a game last night, and I agree with Rudo. For me, playoff hockey is about 5-on-5 goals and getting in, you know what I mean, like production. And it just seems like, again, we'll talk about Dallas for a second, which is kind of nice because we don't wish them well, right? But right, you know what I mean? And I like Dallas, you guys know that, but they beat the Avs fair and square. But right now, you're getting some of Mikko, right? Of the Mikko stuff when he goes dormant for, right? He goes dormant for 7-8 games, right? Doesn't score, and you're seeing that right now. Then all of a sudden, Dutchy goes dormant. Then you got Wyatt Johnson that goes cold. So they're getting all their parts are not functioning all at once, right? Jamie Benn not bringing them much, as we all know. He's far from the guy that led the league in scoring with 80 points that one year, but still he still led the league that year, right? So this is a guy that can still score points. So you're getting a little bit of like dryness, and where on Edmonton's side of things, like holy crap, that power play. I mean, I know I always say goaltending and power play, but you got to score 5-on-5, and Rudo always says 5-on-5 will win you the game. I agree. But that power play is sick. You know what I mean? You're talking about a sick power play. Give them the puck, and it's so unbelievable. 97 is like, give it to me. 29 is like, give it to me. You know what I mean? And it's like, and if they don't score, they're getting 4, 5, 6 chances. So, I don't know. It's a little bit boring 5-on-5. Like you said, I agree. And then now you got Hyman that they lost for the season, which is too bad. That's kind of stinks. Do we know what it is? Like, his shoulder? It was a weird play. Like, you know.
I didn't feel like anything that dirty, right? It just kind of a weird. I don't know. When I saw the hit, I didn't really have that much of a problem with it. That's all.
Yeah. No. I don't think it was. That's what I'm saying. It's either shoulder or his wrist, right? You know what I mean? Because you can tell it flip, and then it's like, talk about bad luck, man. Hyman was just starting to heat up too. You know what I mean? Kind of stinks for him and the Oilers, but you got Nugent Hopkins, right? That's been unbelievable, right? You know how good has he been? You're talking about being an Oiler, like, you know, he's been an Oiler, same obviously as Landeskog, right? Went 1, Landy went 2. I'd still take Landy at 1, but it's all good. Nugent Hopkins is one hell of a player. He is, and I don't care what people say. I'm not a fan. I am not a fan. But what Stuart Skinner is doing right now is pretty amazing. I mean, I'm just saying, it's pretty amazing. Like, I don't like him, but what a turnaround. You would think that the conference would be down the drain. and then to make a little bit of a comeback and actually look good. I'm not saying he's been tested the most or whatever it is, but he's looked good when he's had to, and that's all they need. I think 29 and 97 tell him just be good. We'll take care of the rest.
I mean,
I
when he's good,
wonder,
he's good.
like, we look back at the end of RNH's career, if he almost will get underappreciated because he spent
Yep.
most of his career riding shotgun next to those guys,
He's
like his
the
like
fourth
third
wheel
banana.
pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then
What an
like and then
intelligent
Zach
guy.
Hyman showed up and started scoring all of the goals, and it was like,
Yeah.
well, now RNH has that 100-point season that fell out of the sky, and he's when he heats up and he plays like this, you're like, wow, this guy's incredible. But he goes dark for
Yeah.
such long stretches, but they can survive it because their stars are unbelievable.
Yep. It's
Unlike the stars.
well, they're struggling right now. Is it in a lot of ways? I think RNH and Matt Duchene are very similar players, but Matt Duchene spent a lot of his career not having a Connor McDavid level talent to play with to shelter him a little bit.
Spent a lot of his career thinking he was the Connor McDavid
That's
talent.
also true, but I'll leave it at that. Won't go
Did you
there.
guys see? Did you guys see? Did you like that penalty, the Granlund penalty, or no? At the end of the game, did you
Who
guys
cares,
see it?
man?
When he, I mean, no, I know, but what I'm trying to say is Miko gets tripped right after, and you saw the Miko. If you can read lips, like Miko was mad. He was giving it to the ref. If you can read lips, it was pretty easy to see what he said. He wanted to eat Rooney. Oh my lord! Because now, I mean, if one's a trip, the other one's a trip too. I mean, I'm just saying, you know. But why was he snapping?
I don't know that I care all that much about that at this point. I have given up on trying to understand NHL refereeing at any level, so I'm over it.
Yeah.
I did want to jump off from Florida and Edmonton, though. And this is a conversation I don't think we particularly enjoy having, but it's a continuous topic around the league when it comes to the salary cap. And you have two perfect examples of each side of this. Florida, one game away from their third straight cup finals, has no state tax. Now, the other side of this is the Edmonton Oilers are one game away from their second straight cup final, and Florida or Canada has plenty of, I guess it would be provincial tax. But
yes,
it's been a topic not just like in fandom, but even around the league in front offices. There are GMs talking about the advantages of no state tax and being able to pay players less as far as cap hit because the players get more money because they're paying less taxes. Do you guys think this is an actual problem? Is there some way to fix it? Can they do a like staggered cap system where they take state taxes into account? Or is this just a convoluted conversation that's unnecessary?
I mean, I think that there is something to be said for it, because if you look at, is it just a coincidence that Vegas, Dallas, and both Florida teams all have like a host of amazing contracts in terms of the value? Like, are all of those GMs just master negotiators, or do the players and their agents understand that signing there with no income tax can result in a little bit extra money in their pocket over the long term? Like, yeah, I think it's a thing that exists. It's not irrelevant, but also Florida was irrelevant in the league until like 4 years ago. Like, they've been nothing for 25 years. They've not mattered even a little bit. Vegas came in on day one, came out swinging, got comically lucky seasons out of a whole host of guys, and then have built into sustained excellence from there with really shrewd moves. But like, yeah, those teams all have great deals. They all have great values. I don't think that there's anything that you really need to do. I think it just sucks to suck sometimes. Like that's just how it goes. Is there anything that you're going to adjust for because people want to live in Florida because the weather is great year round versus,
Yeah.
living in Ottawa or Winnipeg? Like do you think Edmonton is like a destination because it's such a wonderful place to live? No, it's because there's a chance to
It,
win right now. You
it
build a good team, you get your stars, you make yourself relevant, and some of that stuff takes care of itself, and some of it you'll never be able to get over.
it does feel like people are maybe making the jump where there's a correlation, but there's not necessarily a causation. Yes, Florida teams are one game away from going to the Cup final for 6 straight years. Two different teams, obviously, but both in Florida. You have had Dallas in a finals. You have had Vegas in a finals in recent history.
Couple of
So
them.
there is a lot of those no state tax teams in the finals, but I don't think there's enough there to say this is a direct relationship to their no state tax is the reason these teams are making Cup finals.
Yeah, what I'll say to that is, I know for a fact that some teams do complain about it. It's a fact, and it's always brought up at the GM meetings, and it's always brought up at the owners' meetings, and there's always an item on the agenda. And I don't even know which team. Again, I'm not hiding anything. I'm just trying to remember, but I know that there's a couple guys that are always complaining about that because they say it's a fact and they have their list and this is where and this is what. And look, it's kind of like Chad saying this is the sixth year in a row as a Florida team. There's an argument to be made, absolutely. But on the other side of things, I know there's a bunch of teams, not that are no tax free states, but they're just, on the, I don't know, like Toronto, I don't know, it doesn't matter. They're saying it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And some teams are saying it doesn't matter. And the way I look at it is, for me, it's, if you're looking at Florida, it's pure coincidence because salary cap's been around for multiple years now. It's not like it started 4 years ago. It's been around for a long time. And like you just said, Florida was really a no burger team, right? For why? Because it was probably ran bad. It was not ran well. If you go back to 1.0, always remember Avs were always gearing up with what? Dallas, Detroit. You're trying to make each other. You're actually making each other better because you have to get through one another to get out of your conference. And I think that's what you're seeing in the East right now. It just happened that Tampa was the team that figured it out, and then Florida changed their GM. Bill Zito came in, right? Changed their whole front office, changed everything, changed the way they did things. Now, does that help a little bit with the, no, absolutely. I mean, use it to your advantage. You know what I mean? But I think they made themselves better to try to get through Tampa, right? And that's what I'm trying to compare it to the 1.0. So, and I think you do a good job with your management. Leadership starts at the top, guys. We all know that. Leadership starts at the top. So if your ownership, your management, and then of course the players, they felt that they had Barkov. They felt that they had a goalie in a sense that they had signed Bob, right? Even though it was disastrous, the first couple of years. But then all of a sudden they're like, we need one thing, and we need one thing only, is to go get someone like Matthew Tkachuk, and they pulled the trigger, right? And then all of a sudden everything came together. Now, I don't think it has nothing to do with the state. I don't think Matthew Tkachuk was saying, I'm not going to Calgary, but I'm going to Florida because, there's no state tax. I think it does matter a little bit. It does, because it's a plus when you're sitting down with the pros and cons. But it's more like, hey, I like the weather. I like it's a destination. It's Florida. And then I like the management. I like the coach that they put in place. I do like the pieces that they have in Barkov, and they have a goalie. So maybe I have a chance to win, just like AJ said 2 minutes ago. That's what you would think about Edmonton, right? They have the two of the best players in the National Hockey League. I might win. And again, they might be going to the finals again, you know what I mean, for the second year in a row. So that's kind of why you go there. But it's not because of the state tax there, because of provincial tax. In Canada, we all know that it's pretty bad, and even worse so in Montreal.
I understand things can change fast in the league, and maybe it's something worth putting on your radar that the state taxes thing exists, but I don't know that we're there yet. We're, 10 years removed from Chicago winning 3 cups in 5 years, LA winning 2 cups in 3 years. There are plenty of places that have found consistent success in recent history that have state tax. So,
yeah. And Nashville
Now,
should be in the finals every year too, but they haven't been there.
Now all of a sudden it's a big thing because the state of Florida is dominating, and for me, I'm just like,
Yeah.
just this is for the birds. Like, if the Rangers didn't choke as often as they did, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We talked about how weak the Metro was on yesterday's show. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes you're
build
just
better
right
teams,
place, right
birds.
time. Yeah. So, is what it
Yep.
is. We do need to take a time out here to pay a few bills, though. So, let's jump in and do that here. Of course, we are brought to you by the fantastic folks over at First Bank. Timeouts are for sports, not banking. That's why First Bank offers you the tools and services to take control of your money wherever you are. With their secure, easy to use mobile banking app, you can check your balance, pay your friends, and stay on top of your money anytime, anywhere. It's banking that moves with you. And here's something extra. Open a new First Bank checking account and you could earn $300. It's a simple way to kickstart better banking and enjoy a little reward for making a smart money move. So if you're ready to take your banking to the next level, check out efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus to learn more and get started. Better banking is just a few tips away. Go get with First Bank today. Of course, certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. And when you get that $300 from First Bank, you can have a little bit of fun with it. You can go over and get with Bet365. You can jump in with them. They're now an official partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Make sure you're jumping in with them. Avs, Nuggets not playing anymore, but you can still make money. You can still have a little bit of fun on games like Edmonton, Dallas, which I don't like, but maybe I'd like it more if I put a couple of bucks on it and won some money on Dallas not scoring at 5-on-5 or something. You can jump in with them today. Of course, in the NHL, if either team goes up by 3 goals, you get paid out immediately. A bunch of other stuff too. When you sign up with code DNVR at Bet365, you put $10 in, bet $5 or anything. Win or lose that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. So make sure you're getting in. Make sure you're using the DNVR 365 code over at Bet365. Of course, those bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. And of course, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. It's an interesting conversation. AJ, you kind of touched on this in the first period, and we can move on from the state taxes thing. But when you look around the league, each teams have their individual advantages at times. Some of those are geographical. I don't know how to speak. You mentioned the sunshine in Florida. A lot of players really want to live in a big city like New York or LA. There are teams that have very successful players that attract other good players. Teams like an Edmonton with a Connor McDavid. I don't know that I would call it fair necessarily, but I also think it's just the reality of sports that you have what's available to you and you need to make the best of it, right?
Yeah, you are where you are. I mean,
Yep.
it just, there are some amazing pluses to signing with the Avs and being in Denver. It's a good organization. It's a competitive organization. There are some great players there. You know, you're going to be in the mix. It's an aggressive front office that wants to compete for championships. Like, there's a lot about being an Av that is great. You know, there is income tax, but it's not like one of the really high ones around the league. Um, but it's Denver. It's not New York City. It's not Los Angeles. You know, there are going to be, funny enough, 2 cities that Eric played in. Um, I guess I'll stop talking. I'll ask you, Eric. You played in Denver, Ottawa, New York, and Los Angeles, and I guess Toronto. What were the yeah, what you tell us. What were the differences there? What are some of the pros and cons?
I got to be honest with you. For me, again, I was a nothing burger player, right? So I'm not talking about high end where you're gonna, hit the UFA market and really, have meetings and dictate where you're gonna go, right? So I think it's like you got to compare apples to apples, right? And there's a lot of guys like that around the league right now too. But if you're a high end guy, I think that the conversation with the agent, the family, your wife, your kid, whoever, you know what I mean? Uh, Take Brock Nelson. It could be like, oh, Minnesota for me is a destination because that's where I'm from, right? But I go back to all the time. It's where like the organization is well run. That is so important. And I'm not going to put a crack on LA Kings because they gave me my shot, right, leaving Toronto. And obviously I was a young man in Toronto. It was an old team, and I only played there a little bit, and I was injured, and I was in the whatever you want to call that taxi squad those few years. Um, and you learn and you have those experiences, but you go to LA, it's your first shot, and I felt great because Barry Melrose and company gave me my first shot. But there was some ownership trouble there. You got to remember. So we had Bruce McNall, and I was, I went to jail, and there was an ownership. The Anschutz had not come in yet, and they were coming in, and so there was a little bit of instability there. That's why Wayne left and got traded to St. Louis, and then you have an old team of guys that have had a lot of success. A lot of the Edmonton Oilers, right? Curry, Gretzky, Charlie Huddy, Martin McSorley. I mean, Rick Tocchet, Grant Fuhr. It's amazing the number of players that have had success, but we didn't have success in LA. We didn't when I was there, But so then you're looking and you feel good because you're in the NHL for a few years. You think it's awesome, and that's why I said I'm giving it a little bit of shot to the LA Kings at that time. But it's not their fault. Again, it starts at the top. When the top is not straight, right? The leadership comes down as a trickling down effect, and it was in between as a transition for a few years, like I said, of ownership. Then the Anschutz took over, and then I ended up getting traded to the Colorado Avalanche, which again I'm going to give my dad a shot in the arm there, the mecca of the NHL at that time. Because why? They were treated the best. They won. They were about winning. Joe says it all the time, right? He gave us a chance to win. You know what I mean? And that's what the organization was about. It was about winning. It was about treating the players right. The city of Denver is a wonderful place. You know what I mean? Like compared to LA, totally different, right? But I come there and I meet my wife, and then my kids are from there, and it's now home, right, for us. So it's kind of like it gets to be where you want it, what you want it to become. You know what I mean? And for me, it became my home, and we were there year round. And we're some guys there from, for example, Minnesota, and they're gonna live and die in Minnesota because in between that's their job, and then they go to work, and then they always have a home in Minnesota or whatever. I'm using an example, and that's where they're gonna end up when they're done playing. You know what I mean? So it's like, so then that has an effect on it. You know what I mean? Because maybe that's a destination. I'm using Minnesota because of Brock Nelson. But, so for some guys, they want to chase the market. Like Wayne, after that became a UFA, want to chase the New York City market, and he did, right? Because it's like, if I would have been a good star player, not a nothing burger player, you know what I mean? I would have loved to gone back home. I would have loved it to gone to Montreal. I would have, as a French guy, and I know it's hard. Like Joel Druin had a tough experience there, and again, I'm not saying that I'm better. That's what I'm saying is I think I would have loved it because I've seen it where it's successful and they win there, and it's incredible. You know what I mean? But if you ask a lot of people today, they're like, "No, I don't want to go there. I wouldn't go there. Are you kidding me? I'm not going. Why would I go to Montreal?" You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people saw it at Four Nations this year, and they're like, opened their eyes, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is crazy here." But it's a different market, and you got to be ready for it. And I'm saying if I would have been a star guy and I could have picked my place, I think Montreal would have been for me a place of destination that I would have had to really look at. And which doesn't make sense because everybody's saying, oh no, they go to Florida and all that stuff. But I think it's part of it. It's a little part of the equation. But sometimes I think management, and again, I go back to 1.0, Teemu Selanne, Paul Kariya, came in absolutely ridiculous discounts, right? Because they wanted to win. They wanted a shot at winning. So that's the destination when it's well run. And I'm giving kudos to the Cronkies right now, to C-Mac and to Joe and Bednar and company, because the Avalanche are a destination, still is a destination, because who wouldn't want to play with McKinnon and Makar?
Look no further than, I think it came out, well...
Too soon. Still too soon.
But look no further than what came out either last night or today about Brock Nelson, who apparently vetoed a trade to Winnipeg and then later accepted a trade to Colorado. So yep. I do think there is, when you are a team that is successful, when you're a team that carries top talent, when you are a team that people believe they can win a Stanley Cup with, it's certainly in the short term, if you're talking about rentals or shorter term contracts, I think holds more weight than most other things do. I do think it's curious with Colorado, and this is anecdotal and obviously biased because I live in Colorado, but it feels like there are a lot of players, top to bottom, that once they come here, they realize how nice it is and they stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and we're calling a 500 games played player a nothing burger player, which is crazy to me, but you stayed here. And then all the way up to a Milan Hajduk, also kept his family here. His family grew up here. Yeah, I mean, Sagic still works for the organization. So,
yeah.
But you go down and even, guys like an EJ, guys like a Matt Calvert loved it here. Yeah. Up and down the organization, you run into people that love not just the Avalanche, but the city of Denver and the state of Colorado.
I mean, Andrew Cogliano played all over the NHL.
Yeah.
And stayed in Colorado. Last week, every time we see Darren Helm, he's hanging out in Colorado somewhere, Like,
yeah, he did too. Yeah, he is. Like, he stayed around too, yeah.
There are guys, John Mitchell stayed, as you know, Eric, and then guys that didn't even play. Why is David Clarkson in Colorado? He was never an Av.
No, a great place to live, and that's what I'm saying. It's a great place to live, and on top of when the organization is at its best, and it has the McKinnon and McCarrs to offer. Back then, Sakic, Forsberg, right? People want to come here, and then to get back to the trades too, and no trades. It happens a lot more than people think, because a lot of times it's not public, right? You know what I mean? And you hear the public ones when it gets leaked and stuff. Happens a lot more than people think. And, because a lot of people don't want it to come out. They feel like guilty, right? And I get it. I would feel guilty too. I'd be like, oh my God, it's a privilege to be in there. But I earned that right. And I still don't like no trades and no movements. I don't like that. But, and again, that's just, I haven't lived it and through it. Like, it's just part of the job. But I get it. I understand it. But I think that it causes more headaches than actually fixes in my book. You know what I mean? So, but it happens a lot more than people think because of all the reasons we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yep. Okay. We do got to move on and actually talk about the Avalanche salary cap situation. Dive into it a little bit more in detail. Starting point. 1. This is the first time in 3 years where the Avs have a reasonable amount of stability in knowing what their salary cap is going to look like. So that's a good place to start. There's not a giant $7 million question mark hanging over Gabe Landeskog, although we do need to see what it looks like in a full season. There's not a giant question mark over Valachushkin's 6.15 or whatever it is. He will be there ready to play game 1 of the season. There's no suspensions or anything going on like that make the money weird. So the money is set. They have roughly $8.5 million of cap space today.
The money is the money for once. The money is the money. We don't have to talk like we don't have to qualify everything. There's no pretend money that we're dancing around with.
Yeah. They could just spend that $7 million. No, they have their money, and that's what they have to spend.
Yep.
It is off season where the cap, you are allowed to go 10% over the cap. So if you want to spend your money first and figure it out later, that is certainly an option for the Avalanche. Honestly, one that I wouldn't be super surprised to see them investigate, if not use. So we'll see. But let's start internally. We've talked a lot about this over the past couple of weeks. We've thrown out names like Sam Girard, like Josh Manson, like Ross Colton, others too, Miles Wood, but there's a value proposition there. I want to get into why it makes sense to move on from some of these names that we've thrown out there. And look, they may not. There's a very real possibility that they keep most or all of these. I think it's pretty unlikely they keep all of them, but it's possible. Why have we honed in on particularly, let's start with the second pairing here, and give me your 10-second answer, and then we'll dig in after the break.
Go for it.
You threw me off there with the 10 seconds.
Yeah, you'll get your 10 minutes in a minute.
Everyone knows in chat I can't do that. So I'm going to give the floor.
Fine, just use the time to think.
Hey, saved by the bell. Saved by the bell.
While they figure out their 10-minute answers, we are, of course, brought to you by Empire Today. If you're coming up with a long form answer, you need a good flooring with it. Make sure your house has good flooring too. Over at EmpireToday.com/DNVR. Empire Today only carries the best products, so when you choose flooring from them, you know it's quality and you know it will last. Whether it's tile, whether it's hardwood, whether it's carpet, they've got the good stuff. And you can get it both in your home or online, or you could always go to Empire Today too. That's fine too. But wherever you go, they'll hook you up. The online, you can measure out your space. You can see what the flooring looks like in that space. They will give you a free in-home estimate. It costs you nothing. They'll come out, they'll show you the carpet or the hardwood, and they'll show you a little swatch of it. You can see what it looks like in your room with your furniture, whatever it might be. They have professional installers. They've got it all. It's fully covered when it comes to Empire Today when you're talking about flooring. So make sure you get with them. You can get that free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. And DNVR listeners can get that $350 discount when they use promo code DNVR or head over to EmpireToday.com/DNVR for full details. Again, a $350 discount with that DNVR code at Empire Today, or you can always call 1-800-588-2300 Empire. Once you've got your floors, make sure you've also got your roads. I don't know where that transition was going, but get yourself into a Toyota. Go check out the official vehicle of DNVR and the Colorado Avalanche with a Toyota. Whether you're a truck lover, they've got those like the Tundra. Whether you're an SUV guy, they've got those like the 4Runner. Or maybe you're a sedan girly. They got things like the Corolla. Whatever it might be, jump in with Toyota. You can go visit them at a ton of different locations here in the Front Range to get 17 different all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive models and 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, including the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Again, those Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you include AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corbin Toyota, Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR and the Colorado Avalanche. Toyota, let's go places. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. All right. You've had time to think about it. You've had time to formulate your long form answers. Why is the second pairing expendable? Why does it make sense for the Avalanche to potentially move on from one or both of them?
I think you have a really noticeable problem on your hands because when you get into a playoff series, you acquire Ryan Lindgren and you say we have to put him next to a puck mover, but Sam Girard and Josh Manson consistently have not worked for you, and Sam Malinsky just isn't a second pairing guy. That then you end up playing the Sams together and then Lindgren and Manson, which exacerbates the weaknesses of both pairings and does not fully appreciate the strengths of both pairings. And it starts with the fact that you're paying the money for a second pairing together that just isn't working and has not worked. It's interesting because there are underlying numbers that will tell you this isn't so bad, but across multiple seasons now, the big number that says, hey, this isn't working is the fact that they just give up goals. That pairing just gets scored on, man. And I think that's just the big problem there is their process is good 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time. But when it's not, it's disastrous and it results in goals against consistently. Goals against. And that's just where you can't get past that. You're years into the data at this point. And Sam Girard had, I think, maybe his best season in the NHL this last season in terms of his play driving. And the things that he does well, he does really well, but the weaknesses are what they are. There's no way for him to get better at some of those things. There's no way for him to get bigger. There's no way for him to get stronger. He's going to get beat in physical battles. He's going to get beat in front of the net. And the way to balance that is to give him a guy like Josh Manson. In theory, it works. But when you watch it, when it breaks down, it's a disaster. And it starts with your second pairing. I think the team absolutely wants to keep Ryan Lindgren, and I think that Sam Malinsky should be back. He's an RFA. He should be cheap. That should be an easy
Just a
contract.
value thing, yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that you're looking at the obvious answer here is that one of those guys has to go and get replaced, maybe both of them, just for the sake of we're not going to we're not trying to pick a side. We're not trying to say one guy's better value, the other guy's better value, whatever. We're just saying we're blowing up our second pairing and moving on from it. Because if they could find guys that they can get on cost-efficient contracts to come in and help there, those guys, I mean, that pairing has just been a problem. You throw in that Josh Manson also has health issues, and it's easy to see why Manson is in front of Girard. Also, the age. It's easy to see why Manson is like in front of Girard and we think the team is more likely to move on from this guy line. I think it's Manson before Girard, but it's not for the first offseason in a long time. I think it's just I'm more open to the idea of just blowing it up and moving on from both and saying a Lindgren Malinsky third pairing, a Taves Makar top pairing, great. Now let's figure out the second pairing, but that's a lot of work. That's a lot of like hard work to do, especially when you have cap constraints and you're looking for cost efficiency. It's easy for me to say that and then say, oh, I'm, just figure out that second pairing. Okay, well, when it comes time to figure it out, you got to figure it out. And as we've seen with the second line center thing, that's not the easiest solution. Yeah. So I think that's where I am with like why we're even talking about this and why this is going to be a summer of change on that blue line.
Part of the conversation is, what are you going out and getting? What are you moving them for? And I think this is where I would agree with you. If you're the Avs and you don't care about return, it feels like Josh Manson is the easier one to get rid of. But when you start talking about return, when you recognize Manson has injury problems, when you recognize he's not exactly young anymore, and then you have a Sam Girard more or less in his prime, still a couple of years left on that deal, yeah, there are going to be some teams that feel like he's too small, but teams that can get over that one topic will see a good amount of value in someone like Sam Girard, and you can probably get a pretty decent return depending on, do the Avs want picks to flip? Do they want to make a hockey trade? That complicates things. But yeah, I'm sure the Avs would love to trade Keaton Middleton for a 2C, but that's also not reality. You seem like you had something to say.
No, I was laughing because you said Keaton, and I'm not bagging on Keaton. I'm saying, yeah, the value is just not there for that. It was funny. I thought that was a funny one. But here's my take on your second pairing. But I think Sam Girard would command the value is out there. I'm telling you right now. You would fetch a lot of people. You would fetch a lot for Sam Girard. There's a lot of teams out there that want him, and you're right. And I defend him all the time because I'm like, if you're going to get him, you're not getting him to battle in front of net, even though he is feistier than people think. But it's a size thing. I get that. But he, that's 10, 12% of his game, and the other 88 are awesome. And if it was 100, then he'd be paid like Cale Makar. You know what I mean? And he's just not. So that's what he is. And I think he's a great fit. I wouldn't touch Sam Girard, not because he's my guy and I love Sammy G and he's from the same part of the world, that we're from, but I love him. And I realized even more when he was gone the season before, when he was gone for like 20, 25 games. That's when I really realized I'm like, oof, I don't like when he's not around. So I wouldn't touch that. That's me. Now, Josh, it's a fact of life. Durability. It's going downhill a little bit, right? It's normal. Plays so hard. What a good guy. What a good gentleman. A winner, a cup winner. On a 1 year left on his deal, you probably could find a team for that. You know what I mean? And that would probably help the Avs with their cap. You know what I mean? But what else do you replace that? Because I'd like to keep Ryan Lindgren too. You know what I mean? And I like Sam Malinsky, So you have to figure it out. Somebody said Perbix or something like that in chat. I'm not stealing. I'm just reading. I don't remember who said that, but things like that. That's pro scouting. That I think the Avalanche have been good. Finding Natushkin back then, when nobody else would give him a deal, they did. So they're gonna have to be a little bit of initiative, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of like thought process of try to figure it out. And it looked no further than the games going on last night and tonight, and the Nate Schmitz of the world that couldn't find a job, the Troy Stetcher of the world that couldn't find a job, and are doing a great job. I know, but it's true. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? And it's a question of fit. It's a question of being at the right place, right time. There are guys out there, because I don't think there's anything in the system. No offense to any guys that are out there, right? With the Eagles, there's nobody in there to come in and replace that. Last year, we were talking about Malinsky because we knew Sam had played, 20 games, whatever it was. He had played in the playoffs. So we kind of knew, all right, this guy can probably potentially win a roster spot. And Keaton's your extra guy. We all know that, And again, that's the element that he brings. And I would keep that, as you guys know. We're not going to have that debate right now because AJ's going to fight me right now. I don't want that. But again, that's totally different. But I think you go on the forward side of things, because I do think that those the two guys that we all know who they are expendable on the forward side. I would, and if something comes along for Josh where it helps your draft capital, it helps your cap, then you kind of almost have to do it.
I do want to talk about the forwards, but really quick before we get into them, another big part of this, to tie it back in, this is about creating salary cap space for the Colorado Avalanche. And when you take out the McKinnons, Makars, Taves, the guys that you're obviously not moving, on the defensive side, Sam Girard's making $5 million. Josh Manson's making $4.5 million. That is a big chunk of money that you can free up by moving one guy. Now, if you want to get into the conversations of, do the Avs want to move a top six forward, we can, because if you're moving in the Chushkin, if you're considering moving someone like a Natchez, that would free up a lot of money too, but that's also blowing a big hole in a part of your lineup that you're trying to solve a problem in your top six of your forward core. Different spot, not winger, center. Maybe that's a conversation for a different show, but certainly on the defensive side, it feels like there's more money to be moved out pretty easy. And then you have the Ross Colton conversation, but go ahead, AJ.
Before we get into Ross, I just want to ask you guys, because I know we're going to talk about Miles Wood, and I'm just going to preempt this with, we haven't really talked about this, but would you buy him out?
I considered it earlier in this summer, because when you look at it, the first year it's like $700K, and then you have a year or two at $1 million, and then it goes back to $700K. It's really not that much of a cap hit.
Right.
If you couldn't, if teams are like, I need a second round pick to dump his cap on us, I'd just buy him out. If teams want to do it for a fourth or whatever.
You're talking about, it saves them basically 1.8 million this year, then 1.3, 1.3, 1.3 is what it saves them for the first 4 years. And then the final 4 years of it costs them $700,000.
Yep.
It sucks that it's on your books for 8 years. That obviously sucks. But for the first 4 years, you're saving a shade over $1 million. And
given the role that Miles Wood played last year, you can find a replacement player for $1.3 million for him, right?
Right. And instead of being like, hey, we're going to trade a high-level asset just to get this money off of our books, you could just buy it out. It's not an ideal solution for anybody, especially because he'd probably sign in Dallas and then rock next postseason. But it is like Dallas has this conversation happening right now with Mason Marchment.
Yep.
And wouldn't you rather Colorado have a Mason Marchment on its third line versus Miles Wood?
Yes.
I just,
what's Marchment at? What's Marchment at? Money was
$4 million.
He's in the fours,
Yeah, I think he only has 1 year left though. So a buyout for him would obviously be a lot easier to
Dallas has
stomach,
some work to do
especially.
this offseason, for sure.
Exactly. He's at 4.5, so a buyout there would be, but it's his final year, so it's like
Yeah, it would only
they're
be
trying
2 years
to.
on the books.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, hey, would you rather? I would say, would you rather just trade Marchment for Wood? But then you're losing cap space with that for the Avs. Like that's not what you want either. Anyway, I just think that with Wood, like you need a solution there because if you can include him into a deal, I know we're about to talk about Ross Colton, so if you can attach him in a Colton deal, knowing that their significant others are homies, that they are homies on and off the ice, like they're
Try
tight,
and keep
you could
them
just
happy a
move
little
them
bit. Yeah.
together. Yeah, you could just move them together, and I wonder if that's something that would be palatable for a team taking it on, where it's like, the Wood deal doesn't really hurt us that much, and maybe he plays. But I think that it was so bad at the end of his this last season that it's hard to imagine the Avs paying $2.5 million for him to come back and like be on the like. Would you rather have Miles Wood or Ivan for
Right.
the
They
cost,
scored the
for
same amount of points
cap hit?
last year.
Right, like for the cap hits that they bring.
Yeah.
It's
too hard. Miles Wood too consistently, and some of it's not even his fault. Obviously, the injury stuff is what it is. That sucks.
Totally.
But he played himself out of the lineup a bit too often last year. Certainly too often for a guy making $2.5 million.
And arguably lost them a playoff game.
Yep.
And that's, but is 1.8 million enough saved money for you to do for you to commit to a guy being on your books for 8 years?
I mean, I hate answering these questions because the answer is, why are you freeing up that money? If that 1.8 million is the difference between you getting Sidney Crosby or not, yes. Yeah, I do it every friggin' time.
Yeah, I mean, my take on those two is I like those two guys, Wood, Colt. I do. I liked the signings back then, and I understood the 8-year signing. I know it doesn't age well. I get it. And it's like, what? When it's signed, but it's like the AAV and bring it down, whatever it is, right? All the circumstances. He was getting more anyway somewhere else. So at the end of the day, I like both. Again, I'm going back to 1.0 and, from 96 to 01, right? The difference. The recipe, it's always about winning, but the ingredients are different. The recipe's the same, and you're just changing the ingredients a little bit. And I think it was the right call to get the Colton, and I liked those signings after the Seattle series. I liked it, right? I liked it. But it, now you're in a situation where, again, we're talking about cap here. You might need to make a deal because of the cap, and you might need to make a deal because of your draft capital that you don't have. And you might have to make a deal. Is it a buyout or is it something? Or Miles Wood's a good player. We don't know much of the medical history. We all assume that he was not good this year. It's easy to see. As a former player myself, I can tell that he wasn't himself. And I like Miles Wood. You know what I mean? So he wasn't himself. And he was himself at times for shifts here, shift there. Lost himself in the, his spot in the lineup for all the reasons. He seems like a great dude. You know what I mean? That's not an issue. It's not an off ice issue. Sometimes you're just not a fit at the right time with the organization you're in. So I think those two guys are the most logical ones. And if I'm a team, and it doesn't matter what team, Miles Wood, like I seriously look at him. If the health is something that can be fixed this summer and all that kind of stuff, I would look at him because I do believe he can be valuable somewhere. Of course, Ross can be valuable somewhere too, but it's a luxury the Avs have, and it's an abundance of talented players and guys that bring something. And we saw when Ross got hurt, there, all of a sudden they were missing a little bit of tenacity, a little bit of feistiness, and but maybe that's the guy that you have to move on from, and there is a value out there for him for sure. And Ross has won a cup before, right? So we'll see.
It's become pretty clear Miles Wood doesn't really fit in Colorado anymore. And some of that has nothing to do with him. It's just the way that the Avs have shaped their roster and their need at center and things like that. I do think maybe something I overlooked, at least. We were talking about buying him out. Look, maybe you sweeten a trade deal by saying, hey, we'll retain $800K on Miles Woods. And that's essentially the same as a buyout. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
500K,
Sure. Yeah.
like it's only 4 years remaining on the deal. I know
Right.
we all obsess over the 6-year contract. Well, 2 of those years are gone.
Yep.
So it's only 4 years left. So that the retaining a couple 100,000, it is essentially like a buyout, and would be better because it's only 4 seasons of it, and you're not obsessing over 500K, $1 million, whatever that is. Like that sucks, but the money that you free up is the point.
It's the Colton conversation, I think, is a lot more complicated because you have to start the Colton conversation with what is he in Colorado?
Yeah.
AJ, you've alluded to a potential option for the Avs being Ross Colton as their 3C, depending on how they approach that position this offseason. If he's your 3C, he has a lot more value to you than he does as your 3 right wing. So the Avs have to make some internal decisions here for, do they want to make Ross Colton available, or do they see him as part of that center depth? If they don't see him as part of the center depth, in my opinion, I think he should be pretty available.
But that's a great point, and that's a
Yeah.
great point. Though always remember that, right? So let's go ahead, AJ. But I love your point, Rudo, there about the 3C, right? So
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, with Ross Colton, like it's $4 million. It is only expensive because the Avs are in the cap situation that they're currently in. Otherwise, Ross Colton is a guy who plays the way the Avs want to play. He's productive. He's versatile. He played an entire year as Colorado's as a de facto 3C for them, sometimes 2C, but was effective. I mean, as you look at the underlings, he was good. You look at the production, he had a 40-point season.
Yep.
He scored his 4 seasons. He has 4 full seasons in the NHL. 22 goals, 16 goals, 17 goals, 16 goals. He scored 16 last year in 61 games. The assists were way down, so his 29 points is the worst of those 4 seasons. But also, you look at who he was playing with a lot of times, and you look at the role he was like. There was some tough sledding for Ross Colton after he had the insanely hot start. Like, that's a productive, quality player. He's a good player, and he produces, and he's still young, and he plays with a compete and a physicality, and his work rate is high. Like everything that I want to keep, I want them to find a way to keep Ross Colton, because a Ross Colton, Charlie Coyle foundation of a third line is a really good start. And that's
Yeah, both those guys are making $1
when you
million
have an injury,
less.
of course. And you have, when you do have an injury, like it's those are both guys that can move
Slot
up into
up,
your
yeah.
top 6. Yeah. And Colton has the wing center versatility. Like, he's valuable, and I think that's why other teams are going to be willing to give up a little bit more for him. With Miles Wood, it's more like you're trying to attach him in a deal, like you're
Yeah.
trying to find a team that is like willing to take it. Like, it's more like an active, we're trying to move on from this player. And with Colton, it's more of a begrudging, like we really don't want to, but if we can find a 35-point player for $2 million, we will. Like,
Right.
we just have to make this decision right now. And that's the rub with Colton, because that's a good player. That's a good player with strong underlines, with strong characteristics. All of the traits about him, you love them. And it sucks we didn't get to see him in the postseason series, because that's what he's built for. He's built for those types of series where that physicality and the compete ramp up. He matches that. That's one of the big things that they went. Eric, you alluded to this earlier. After the Seattle series, that's why Wood and Colton were brought in. Were to bring some snarl and some tenacity. With Wood, it's gone a little bit sideways. With Colton, it's been what they've wanted. It's gone well. It just,
I agree.
at $4 million, you're just trying to say, hey, if we can get similar production out of a $2.5 million player, that's what they need to do.
It's the reality of a team in a cup window, particularly a cap crunch team in a cup window, is a lot of the moves you make have to be value propositions. It can't, you can't look
Yeah.
at, we have to go out and get the best player at every possible opportunity. You have to go out and get the most efficient players whenever available. You needed players that the magical, although I actually think this might start changing with the cap going up, but the $100,000 per point mark becomes really important.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We're probably done with that at this point, with the way that the cap is blowing up.
Yeah,
Some of these
exactly.
Blech.
Money go up, as they say.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I kind of want to wind down the show here as we're getting toward the end with this thought. We saw the Avs go pretty all in this last season. Obviously, it came up short. We don't have to rehash all that.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at an off season that you're trying to make moves and retool or whatever you want to call it, how much are you looking at the immediate future and how much are you looking at the next 3 or 4 years of this organization with the moves you make this off season?
I think that there's a lot of retooling possible because like the long-term contracts that they have right now are guys that they want to keep.
Sure.
The McKinnon, Landeskog, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Makar, Taves, and I'm just assuming Makar with his next contract because I can't imagine a world where the Avs let him go. Like those are all guys, like those are your core guys. Those are guys that you're keeping and you're comfortable keeping for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
It's, they have to make a choice on Marty Netchus. That's one of their high level decisions that they have to make this summer. But yeah, I think that they have to. I think they have an opportunity to kind of like the middle of their roster, both forward and defense. Those middle areas are ones where there's a chance for them to get more cost efficient in those spots this summer, but especially because they can't do anything about the Charlie Coyle deal.
Yep. You've been there. You've been doing the pro scouting and off seasons for teams. What's it like?
Sometimes you got to do it because when I say do it is you'll trade for a future, meaning a draft pick, right? Because of we all know they don't have the capital, but then you turn around and you take that capital and you switch it for a player, right? Right now they can't go get that player. You know what I mean? Like because it doesn't have the value of a first round pick and I know it's easy to say sometimes, just take Wood and Colton and get that. Well, yeah, I know, but it's not how it works in the sense that you have to go get the capital and then you use the capital to go get player X. Everybody's in different terms. Everybody's in different stages of their contracts, their status. So everything comes into play. But I think they're going to have to retool on the fly a little bit there. And when I say retool, change the ingredients, right? Because they do have the recipe. I think they do have the winning recipe. They do. And Chris and Joe and Ben are in the core. But they have to perform better. We all know that because they, again, besides their cup run, it hasn't been that great, right? Because they lost in the first round, lost in the second round, lost in the first round. So they have to eat their carrots, like we say in French, and have a big summer and be ready to go next year. But you might need to, because of like we've been talking about the whole show, the cap. You might need to make things in order to go get things, and that's like a first round pick, a second round pick, things they don't have. They just don't have it, and that's why I forget Chris's hiring this year. So I apologize, the capologist, but and that's why it comes into play, and that's why I was hired because they're important decisions, and there are things I'm not the best at, and I'm not very good at all actually at. But they have to look at, is it better, like we talked about, is it better to buy out Miles Wood? Is it better to trade him with some retain? Or is it better to try to find a taker or all the above, right? Or you keep him or whatever it is, right? Because of, so there's a lot that goes into it. That's why the gentleman has a job, and that's for him to put his input and tell Chris and company and the staff that, hey, this is the way we should go, and this is what we can do, and this is what we can't do. And if we have to do this, then you have to unload this, right? You know, and so it's a big puzzle. It's a lot of work. But I do believe that sometimes you have no choice but to make painful decisions and things that you don't want to do, you know, in order to get better ingredients to get you back to your winning recipe.
Yep. As we head into overtime here, you can go check out the summer intro offer. We got a quick little sale going down, $36 to become a diehard. You can get a bunch of amazing content from us here, obviously, but everybody at the DNVR. Highly recommend you go check it out. I know we have some plans. A lot of people have really loved our roundtables. That's something we want to bring back this offseason. So highly recommend you get in. You can get yourself a free shirt as well with the official DNVR diehard membership. Go check it out. Great deal going on right now for you there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Tomorrow's show, we can maybe get into some of the potential options the Avs could look at for, I don't know. A trade is so hard to talk about right now, but maybe you could look at, hey, here's a potential cheap free agent I'm keeping my eye on type of thing. It'll be fun. We'll enjoy it. It is a little bit of the hurry up and wait part of the offseason for a lot of the teams that aren't playing hockey right now. So
yeah,
for sure.
We'll see how it goes, but that's all I got. Any final thoughts on the Avs cap situation, boys? No? All right. Good. Let's get out of here. We appreciate everybody hanging out. We're back tomorrow, noon Mountain, our new start time. Tell your friends. We start at noon now. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.